stiff truth.
I'm just resting my head on Nick Cage's hairy thigh right now. Isn't that nice?
Oh, well, with that being said, welcome to the Stiff Truth. I am Scott Kesselnova, and with me, as always, my co-host, my compadre here, Mr. Bob West, the Stiff Truth. And I'm really excited today because we're going to be talking about the Batman. But do they say the Batman or the Batman? What do you think? How should it go?
I think most people say the Batman.
Okay. Well, the Stiff Truth is going to be checking out and doing a little review, so to speak, on that amazing movie that came out here recently. I know we're a little bit late to the game, Bob. It came out about a month ago, but you know what? Both you and I waited for it to come on HBO Max. I wouldn't really say for free because we pay for that stuff, but definitely some easier viewing versus the theater, which I didn't get a chance to go see this one in the theater. Kick myself for that a little bit. But hey, first off, man, how the hell you doing? You look good today. You look great today, actually.
I look real good today.
I love that song. That's a classic, dude. I am with that one.
So yeah, I'm doing good. I'm feeling good. I'm just kind of getting over the tragedy that came upon the West House a couple of days ago. We had like 70-mile-an-hour sustained winds at our house for much of the day. And
just a regular spring day in New Mexico.
Well, I don't live in Edgewood, but
or Moriarty.
Moriarty. But it blew over my fucking flagpole.
Oh man. That's not good.
So now I've got to get a flagpole bigger than all the neighbors if I'm going to replace it.
Well, that seems like a must anyways. You know what I mean? Good for you. And look, silver lining out of this. I think Mother Nature knew that you needed to up your flagpole game. Condolences on that. But hey, let's get right into what's most important here at the Stiff Truth. Of course, not really what we're going to be talking about. That's secondary to the beautiful cocktail that we have today, which I'll tell you what, this is a dandy. I'm going to let you take the lead here. Just kind of roll it out because it was your idea to have this cocktail this week. But I'm impressed, Bob. Kudos to you. What do we got?
First of all, it's very stiff. It definitely makes the grade. You don't want to drink too many of these. In fact, one of them might make you get an Uber, depending on how quick you need to drive and how fast you drink it down.
This is true.
It's 3.5 ounces of vodka. Right, it's
it's good too.
There's sugar in it. There's lemon juice in it. Triple sec, but this is a lemon drop martini.
Yes.
This is.
I'll tell you what,
very
nice
strong, very good. Definitely a sipping one. And do yourself a favor. We're not animals here. Run it through a shaker. This is a shaken, not stirred drink. Listen to the 007. Do yourself that solid. And mine's actually lost a little bit of the shaken color because it took me a minute to set up here, but still delicious.
I love the murky off-white kind of coloring here, but yeah, fantastic. Bob, come on, keep it clean here on the Stiff Truth. You know how we are. But no, I do love this cocktail. It's really good. I'll be honest with you, I've never had one. I told Jamie we're having this drink today, and she's like, oh yeah, that's like a super common chick drink in the bars. And I'm like, well, Jesus, it's super, super stiff. I mean, this is no punk bitch, so to speak, when it comes to the stiffness factor. So you definitely hit the nail on the head here, Bobby, with it meeting all the criteria for the show. It checks all the boxes. But to give everybody just a quick peek here on how Bob made it, because I want to say this is a little bit of like a Bob spin on the lemon drop.
A little bit.
Right. So we've got an ounce of simple syrup. This is my second time now doing it homemade. So thank you again for showing me the way there. I had a lot of fun with that a little earlier today. Ounce of simple syrup, ounce of fresh lemon juice. I'm actually going to get a little hand press, which gets delivered tomorrow. Very excited about that. Our boy that we watched and we promoted a couple weeks ago, that makes the drinks on TikToks. He had one of those, and that's where I got the idea. I was like, I need to get one of those.
We need to plug that channel.
Yeah, we really do.
We can't just
Chaotic cocktails.
chaotic. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
We
Great.
owe it to him. What a great channel.
We really do. And like Bob said, we are civilized here. So we throw that into a shaker with some ice, those two elements there, equal parts, and then 3.5 ounces of vodka, half ounce of triple sec. So literally 4 ounces of booze. Like Bob was saying, you don't pound one of these and drive your kid to soccer. You know what I mean? Maybe you sit down for a minute, have a glass of water afterwards, or maybe you just don't drive after you have one of these. That's maybe my thing. I don't know about you, but
yeah, because you don't want to drink it too slow because you want it to be cold when you drink it, right? But you do need recovery time in between drinks like this. I would say like one of these, and then you need an hour after you've drank it to move on to another one. And that doesn't mean drink beer for an hour and then go back.
Yeah.
That would mean straight up like take a break, have some tea, whatever, then go back, and moderation there. But it is very strong. I'm digging it. It's right up my alley. I love lemon, just in general. So it dulls up the vodka really nice. It was a pleasant surprise, just kind of trying it. I'd never tried one till today. I've made a couple for people, and they said they're really good, but I'd never actually tried one myself. So yeah, I'm having fun with it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, dude. Something that I noticed about it, just again, comparing it to the classic olive juice, either vodka or gin martini. The olive juice definitely does muddle the flavor of the vodka, but not so much in way of like when you drink a vodka martini, even if it's filthy, like half olive juice, it's still pretty heavy with the aftertaste of vodka. This with the citrus bite of the lemon and the simple syrup, it almost wipes it away completely. I mean, you can still tell there's a lot of alcohol in there, but this is a much more easy drinking stiff cocktail versus the classic martini.
100%. And you can lean in with citrus vodka and get you like some citron. Get you some citrus vodka and throw it in there too. And it'll mask it even farther.
Or you can lean in like I do with Bob when I'm teaching him how to golf. You know, how to like perfect.
It's all in the hips.
I'm an idiot, but hey, kudos to you, man. Great drink. I'm just gonna say a little cheers here, bud. I'm gonna take another little sippy sip because this is a dandy. Keep it stiff.
Yeah, surprisingly stiff, right? Who knew a drink called a lemon drop martini would be so like, goddamn.
You know, and again, I got to tip the hat to you, my friend. I like when you take something and make it your own a little bit, right? Because I honestly, the original recipe is a little bit different. I didn't really like the format and the recipe as much as what you told me over the phone. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. That sounds good. And it came together quite nicely, Bob. Just like
because the original recipe is calling for what, like fine sugar or something?
Yeah, fine sugar, and then you're muddling this with the lemon juice and then adding it separately. I mean, just kind of. I mean, it's not really adding steps if you're making homemade simple syrup, but at the same time, I like the idea of just throwing all the liquid together real quick after you get it ready. Shake that shit up like Michael J. Fox. Boom, bam, you got yourself a lemon drop martini. Anyways. I wonder how many times I'm going to use the Michael J. Fox reference when I talk about the shaker. Probably every single time.
I was going to say it's like 100%.
Yeah,
I don't even know if you miss a chance.
No, I don't. Poor guy. You know what I mean? And I really do love Michael J. Fox. So maybe I should dial it down a little bit. But you know what? Fuck it. Who cares? Let's get into some fun stuff here. We're going to talk about the Batman.
Speaking of like getting old and mental decline and shakiness.
Oh, gee, that's a beautiful segue here. You saw it here too, man. Because again, definitely want to talk about the Batman. That's the bulk of our conversation to here. But I couldn't help but notice as I'm flipping around a little bit earlier this week on the news that the PR people for Bernie Sanders are like, hey, don't rule it out. We are potentially looking at Bernie 2024. And right away, I wrote this down and I was like, Bernie 2024 ? And then I wanted to talk to you about it because I was like, dude, look, and here's the thing. We talked about this too. I think we've mentioned it on the show. I don't agree with Bernie Sanders on very much at all, which is okay. I mean, that's fine. He's got some very extreme views opposed to somebody like myself, but he is, without a doubt in my mind, the most genuine person that really wants to make a difference. Like you said, a guy that actually wants to do his job as it is written for a American politician. But he's been beat up the past 2 elections. Dude's well into his 80s now. I don't know, Bob. I don't know, man. But what were your thoughts when you heard about this?
So first off, personally, I think there needs to be an age limit on running for president, and we need to cap that off around 65. Because if you're 65, by the time you're done, you're already pushing 70 anyway. You're already past retirement age. Like, you should have already retired from your career at this point, and there's a reason that's the age, right? It's because of the physical and mental decline that tends to happen on average after 65, right? It's just tough. So I wanted to get a little bit of insight and a little bit of research into this topic and some perspective. So I was talking to my mother, who is a conservative Texas woman in her 70s. And I said, Mom, it looks like Bernie Sanders is wanting to run for president again. Joe Biden's talking about it. Trump's talking about it. And I'm like, what do you think about people running for president when they're pushing 80 years old? And she told me this. She said, I don't think anyone 80 years old should run for president. This is coming from someone in their 70s. And she's like, it's not because they don't know things. I mean, yeah, it's a hard job. And I was like, 100%. I said, so I would rather have someone in their 50s that have cabinet members that are in their 70s.
Even 80s, even 90s, if they have the mental capacity.
Yeah, like, I want an economic advisor. I'm going to just like, hey, let's have a meeting with, what's his name from Berkshire Hathaway? The billionaire.
Warren Buffett.
Warren Buffett, right? Like, call him in. He's in his 90s. But he's going to give you some good insight, right? But you don't want him fucking like pushing the button. You know what I mean? No, hell no. He's wearing Depends right now, and he's on his third one for the day.
Goodness.
Like, you don't want that. Like, no. So consulting with elderly folks and gaining their wealth of knowledge is one thing. But when it comes to that 3 a.m. wake up, the military or the intelligence communities waking you up so that you can make a tough decision and get that info right away, right? Hold that 8 o'clock meeting with the old guys. They've already been up for like 4 hours at that point, like, and get that insight and get that collaboration. But as far as running for president, it's too tough of a job to be putting in 16, 18-hour days for someone that's in their like late 70s and 80s.
Okay, that makes more sense here, because initially what you said, I was going to push back a little bit and be like, well, I do agree, like the 65 limit or whatever, mental capacity wise, because there are people, I'll use a random example, people in their 90s, like Gene Hackman, Clint Eastwood or whatever, that are still very mentally sound, have like almost no issues. But again, can they put in 16 8-hour days, carry the load of stress and everything like that? I mean, there's some people that handle their mental capacity way longer than 65 without even dropping the ball at all in any way, shape, or form. However, just the physical and mental strain of the job, I do agree with you. I don't think I could handle it at my ripe age of 39 right now. I just don't think I could. I would probably have to like take a lot more vacations than even George Bush did. You know what I mean?
I was gonna mention that he was the king of vacation, right?
He liked. Well, dude, you gotta have that work-life balance, baby. No,
Trump took a lot of time, but he was golfing a lot and went to like his resorts. They weren't classical vacations. Like Bush would go hunting and shit.
Yeah,
fuck this job. I'm taking 3 weeks off.
The thing with the Bernie thing that gets me, man, is I think we've seen it now time and time again. I think I could technically say time and time again, because it's happened 2 times in a row where he has a shitload of supporters. Like the general masses on the left love Bernie, but when shit gets serious and it looks like he may wiggle his way into the Oval Office, a bunch of old school, more corporate Democrats start pulling strings to make sure that just doesn't happen. It seems like there's just way too many vested interests and people in pockets to let that kind of shit happen, because it is too far removed from what we're used to, in the sense that it would literally rock the power of the political world. And I just don't think we're ready for it still. So I almost feel like it's going to be close again, but it's going to be like another lost cause. And now that he's well into his 80s, I think we're going to get less people that actually can take him seriously just because of what you said, his age and everything. It's hard, even if he is completely sound all the way across the boards. I don't know, man. To me, it almost seems like a pointless lost cause. You know what I mean? To a certain extent. Now, you had mentioned something interesting the other day too. Is like, he needs like his Padawan learner, so to speak, to like take the stage right now. You know what I mean? And again, use Bernie as like his strongest advisor and or something like that. I don't know who that is though. Does anybody come to mind that actually could be taken seriously? Like right out of the gate, we're thinking super far left. I'm thinking AOC, but I don't think she has a chance with how polarizing her.
She's too far left.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So who could actually legitimately take that stage for him and actually get what he wants to get accomplished that is going to be taken seriously? I think it's tough sledding, man. So I don't know.
I honestly think that Bernie could come up with anyone he wanted to. As long as they're a 40 to 50-year-old male, a white male. Because,
Jesus Christ! Oh my God!
I'm just saying that's who gets elected president. I'm just saying. Very, very little chance of a woman or a minority president. There's like one exception. So
yeah, I mean, if we remove the whole block of 2008 to 2016 out of there, you're absolutely right.
So just being a realist, but all kidding aside, he could really pick anyone that he wanted to, and just like, hey, listen, this is the guy. He's got a fucking PhD. He's a young congressman or whatever that believes a similar line as me. But the bottom line is, I'm too old, and I need him to do it for me. Right. And if he just said that, like, hey, this guy's going to be basically my surrogate candidate. I'm too old and I don't have the stamina to try to do this, but I'm more than happy to advise this guy and guide him on my principles. So he's going to be adopting my platform, and he's going to be running as my platform, and he can just lay out his platform, and then he could literally just have a surrogate and pick whoever he wanted to, and I think get the same kind of buzz. They just got to be bright and well spoken, all right, and even keeled and good temperamented, right? So, which probably a half of the congressmen in the Democratic Party, he could probably pick and groom it and kind of do that sort of thing too. And I think he'd get respect for doing it and not saying, I don't want the power. I just want what's best. And I think he genuinely does want what's best, even if I don't agree that what he wants is best. I think that he believes it. Right. And to his core, what you said earlier, I think he's genuine. I think he's in public office to do what he thinks is best for the country, regardless of if it actually is or not. That's up for debate. But I do think that he could just pick that person, and it doesn't have to be someone that's in the spotlight right now.
Yeah, I'm having a tough time putting on a face to that person right now. It would be interesting to see if he could like literally almost take a quote unquote no name, you know what I mean, politician, and groom him to be like his candidate, so to speak, like you said, a surrogate candidate. That'd be interesting. Again, until there's more people like him in the Senate and the House of Representatives that with his views, and we're slowly getting a small pocket of people that are that far left, that are socialists straight up. So, social democratic, whatever. I mean, they're still very far off the tree, so to speak, from the corporate, I'll call them the corporate Democrats. You know what I mean? I don't know. It'll be interesting. But again, when I saw that, I was like, yeah, I don't know. But then again, we say this like, oh my God, he's too old. Biden, he's pretty much said he's throwing his hat back in there for the race in 2024, and he is now 80 years old. He is 80 years old.
I saw an article that he had told Obama that he wants to run again. And I'm just like, dude, like, you can barely walk again. Like,
now, the issue with that, and I think almost everybody at the right and left, right? I mean, even the people that were ignorant to it and they put on blinders themselves during the race because they just wanted the guy, like we talked about, the guy that could literally the safest guy to beat Trump. That's what he was, right? Okay, let's just call it what it is. And a lot of people turned a blind eye and just got a little bit like, you know what? He's already kind of losing it a little bit anyways, but you know what? Still, we got to get Trump out of there. Whatever, that's fine. But even now that he's been able to settle in and gaff himself up a little bit more, more and more, I mean, even just with how he slips and says shit that they have to just clean up all the time, especially with what's going on in Ukraine. He said some things that literally could send us to war with Russia.
Like
And they've had to
Putin, we need a regime change.
yeah, we need a regime change.
I'm
This
like,
guy's a
dude.
dictator. You know, we're gonna have troops on the ground. You know, like, what are you doing, dude? Like, back it up, homie. Like, your PR team is like they're just shitting their pants every time you get on and start talking to the American people, man. But can you imagine how many people have lost faith in him already, or just finally realized now that the Trump hangover is over, so to speak, for a lot of the Democrats, because he's had a couple years in there almost, that they're like, yeah, this guy's already losing it. How can we make it another 2 years with this dude and then literally take him seriously to run the country for another 4? I don't. I mean, if he does commit to doing it, nobody in the Democratic Party is going to stand against that. I mean, that's not the way it goes. You know what I mean? He's obviously going to be the candidate for.
They won't even hold primaries.
Yeah,
most likely.
Yeah, if that's kind of the thing. If the sitting president wants to go for the second term, they're kind of like, all right, dude, that's all you.
I think they should still hold primaries, personally.
That would cause some division, wouldn't it? That would be that would
best man for the job, always. It's just there's no like, we're just gonna assume you're the best man. No, we're gonna let everyone vote. Best man for the job.
I love that. You're like, I'm like, yeah, no, we got your back, Biden. So, anyways, anybody else want to take his job? Because hey, it's best man for the job. You know, hey, Biden, it's cool, bro. It's cool. It's like, well,
and they don't have his back, right? So that's part of his problem, is that the Democrats don't have his back. The far left Democrats think he's too conservative, and the moderate Democrats think he's too fucking progressive. Yeah. And so he's only got those corporate Democrats that you talked about earlier, the Hillary crew. That's who he has. That's a lot of power in the Democratic Party. But as far as the people go in representation, that's just not the way that it is anymore.
It's true. The only power they have is the power to kill people when it needs to happen. You know what I mean? Allegedly. No, but again, it seems that they almost have no voice or no power until it gets down to shit actually changing or happening. And then all of a sudden they just seem to step in and take charge, which is always interesting to me. But yeah. And again, on the same side of this, or on the other side of it, same kind of conversation. What do you think about Trump? I mean, God, he's got his base. That's for sure. He's doing rallies all the time. We talked about this earlier this week. He could legitimately, meaning there's nothing stopping him from making another run at this too. So there's that. And he is not 80, but he's now, I'd have to look it up, but I believe he's in his mid 70s, right?
78, something like that.
Well, I'll look it up real quick here because it's not hard to Google Trump.
He's 75.
75.
So he'll be 77.
So he's a spry 75 versus a Biden 80. But what do you think about that?
So on a couple of things, I don't think he should run, because I think he should, if he's going to run on his platform or whatever, he should just let DeSantis do it. He's younger. I think he has a better chance than Trump at this point. That similar platform, they'll have the same captive audience. The way that he is and his brashness, everything, I think that like 99% of the Trumpsters that voted for Trump are going to vote for DeSantis.
Agree.
And now, mind you, not all Trumpsters voted for Trump. That's kind of why he got elected, right? So that's the big question mark. Can DeSantis even win? I don't know. Now, Trump has raised $200 million to run. Right. And that's his money. So if anyone wants to know, like, campaign finance law and all that, he can keep all that money and spend it on, hookers and blow if he wants to.
That sounds like a fun day. I'd go down to Key Largo with him. You know what I mean? And say, hey, Trump, let's spend that money. You know what I mean? Don't even worry about running again. That was a shit show. The spotlight was on you way too much. Let's go party.
Right. As long as he pays his taxes, that's his money.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Wait. We got to pay taxes here.
So, so Trump's worth like $1 billion, right? Give or take, right? And he's built his empire, whatever. So when you think of $200 million just in the last 2 years, it's one of the most successful business ventures he's ever had, as far as pure profitability and turnaround and ROI. So he hasn't announced he's going to run, which is kind of odd, right? But he hasn't announced that he's not going to run. So he's still accepting the money. I personally think he's not going to run. And he's going to take that money and he's going to say, thank you, everyone. And he's going to keep that money, pay his taxes, and cash it and put it in his bank and keep living a life. I think I'm in the minority on that. I just have a feeling that he's just not going to deal with it anymore. And he just doesn't want to say it because the money's still coming in.
Yeah, there's a lot to that. I think that's definitely one side of it that I can see playing out logically. We talked about this earlier too. The other side of this is Trump is not logical. He's not rational, which again,
what do you mean? Perfectly reasonable guy.
right? So there's definitely some proof in that pudding, so to speak. But that could be the other side of this is like, and this is what I had mentioned to you when we talked about this earlier this last week is Trump he's been under the magnifying glass way more than he and his family want or need for the kind of shit that they do. Not saying anything, allegedly, you know what I mean? But there's been plenty of things going on after he was kicked out of the presidency that you would think you would not want to put yourself and your family under that kind of level of scrutiny again. And going for the White House again is going to do that times 10 of what he dealt with last time, because there's going to be so many more people. The hangover from 2016 of the Democrats will come back and tenfold. You know what I mean? There'll be people out to get him before he even said he's going to do it. So you would think if the dude wants to keep the sanity for himself and more of his money and just kind of shield his reputation from crumbling more and more, he would just say, you know what, I'm going to bow out. I'm going to continue to do my rallies. I'm going to do speeches. I'm going to do the ex-president thing. You know what I mean? Right. I'm going to go make my fucking $100,000 speeches at this university, do that. I'm going to be a badass. I'm going to show myself everywhere. People are going to love me. They're going to shower me with gifts and just move on with his life, golf, eat his McDonald's, have a great time. But something inside of me thinks that he is so crazy and so absorbed with power and what the presidency gives him that he's never had in his life, but he's always been right around it, that he literally could ignore all that and just seeing red almost just go right for it again, because somebody like Hillary is going to tell him that there's no possible way he could do it again. That's all he really needs, Bob. You know what I mean? Is somebody that he despises to tell him, you're washed up, Trump, you can't do it. Oh yeah. And then he's going to go fucking do it. So it'll be interesting to see where Donald Trump really is in his state of mind and what he wants to do to not just him, but everybody that's around him and connected to him in the next couple of years. Because it'll really tell a story. You know what I mean? It'll really tell a story about the guy in the next couple of years if he decides to run or not. But it should be interesting. Like you said, if there is anybody that is a young Padawan learner to Donald Trump, it's DeSantis. I mean, they are cut from the same cloth. And I'm not even bashing the guy. You know what I mean? I'm just saying that he could literally take his platform and you probably grab, and I'm just going to say, 85% of Trump's base without even trying to. I just think that he can do that based off what he's done in Florida and the theatrics that he's done and just different things. So that would probably be the smarter move. And like you said, maybe have Trump as like just his campaign manager, almost like unofficially. You're going with all the rallies with DeSantis, churching him up, advocating for him and everything, and just, marketing DeSantis, so to speak.
I don't think he would do it.
Yeah, because his ego.
Well, that and there's just a huge rift between him at this point. Like it was all good when DeSantis was a disciple. But now there's an adversary.
Disciple, I love it. Well, this is Trump terminology right now too.
Now that there's an adversary, no go. No, he doesn't endorse him. They like don't talk anymore. It's a complete 180 on that. Speaking of DeSantis, there's rumors going around that Disney's thinking about moving out of Florida.
I thought about this.
What do you think about that? That's got to be like a $40 billion decision.
I would go ahead and say I'm not going out on a limb here that that Disney props up Florida to a certain extent with revenue just because of their presence in Central Florida. I mean, they own nearly half of Central Florida in general. However, I was thinking about that earlier. I was like, this is interesting to see how this goes. There's not many other places legitimately that Disney World could move to where they would have the year-round opportunity like they do in Florida, maybe South Texas or something like that. You know what I mean? But other than that, I don't really see them actually being able to do what they can where they're at geographically, but it could happen. What
if they left the country to find that?
I think Disney's stock would just tank if that was the case, because then they would be seen as un-American if they left the country. I don't think
California.
They do, but I mean, that's almost like another country. So
Because if they go to Texas, dude, honestly, Texas and Florida, they're not very different.
they're not very different, but the dollar signs would come in. Maybe Texas, especially Texas politicians, would change their tune. They'd be like, oh shit, they're considering moving here. Dude, that's like an extra, $1 billion a year with tourists and everything that goes off of like just piggybacking off Disney being somewhere. Can you imagine the amount of just GDP and stimulus of revenue that would come into that state? I don't think Florida can lose them. I don't think if they actually have the breakup conversation, I think Florida backtracks. That's just my mind.
Well, because they're definitely having the Mexican standoff right now, right? Because now they're saying, all right, that self-governance law that we had for you,
Bob,
yeah, we're gonna call that back. And
let's not be racist. It's a Cuban standoff in Florida.
It's just
okay?
a standoff, you dick. So now they're trying to call Disney's bluff, right? And over all this, honestly, it's over like political theater and wokeness nonsense, right? But they're trying to like impose their will on how Disney does their corporate fucking dealings and self-governs themselves as a business. But there's also like actual self-governance as far as like having their own police force and shit like that, right? So they're trying to pull that back, and I think they're trying to call Disney's bluff here. But from your perspective, you think that Disney's got the leverage still, that they're gonna fight back and they're gonna call Florida's bluff and be like, you know what, motherfuckers, push comes to shove, if we leave, y'all are fucked.
I think there's more money in Disney being in Florida versus the other way around. You know what I mean? I just think Disney has, if they're smart about it, they've got the power play here. And considering, I mean, dude, if you take Disney out of Florida, you've got Miami. You pretty much got like the western part of South Florida. That's their moneymaker. Outside of that, you don't have really shit, bro. Thank God you have Tom Brady and Tampa Bay reviving the Bay Area a little bit. But I mean, before that, I mean, you don't really have much. That place thrives on Disney being in Central Florida. So I would be hard pressed to see Florida say, yeah, you know what, Disney, take a fucking hike. Like literally just uproot your shit. We want all of our land back. We don't want any of your revenue. Now that the park is back opened up 100% and all the, I don't know. But again, you never know. You never know what political winds will do.
Like, to put it in local terms, it'd be like Albuquerque talking shit to like Sandia and be like, I know you bring like all kinds of revenue into our city, but fuck off. When they have like a $50 billion annual contract or some shit like that, right? It's a huge chunk of revenue for the city of Albuquerque, but you would never see that because no one would ever mess with that, right? There's just too much revenue coming in and out of it that funnels down to taxpayers and all this benefit of the city. And the same thing in Florida, right? So much money's coming in and Disney's just sucking the money in from the rich people all over the country to go to Florida and drop fucking $20,000 in a week.
Oh, dude, all over the world too. Let's not forget there's usually a good amount of straight up immigrants that come to Disney World, not Disneyland, because it's the bigger, better park. And there's always like large factions of people that don't speak English that are fresh off the plane from all over the world because they want to be in Disney World and Florida and just suck up the weather and the magical experience with their 100 kids that are with them. Dude, they really can't. They can't afford to not have Disney in Florida. It'll be interesting to see how this plays out. I was telling Jamie earlier, though, I love what's going on with Disney in general, the boycott and everything, because it's slowly dropping the stock price, and I just keep buying that shit. You know what I mean? I was like, dude, guys, and look, I'm not a financial advisor, but Disney owns so many trademarks, and they're just continuing to buy intellectual property, Marvel, Star Wars, you name it. It would be unwise not to just keep putting some money in Disney as the conservatives are helping push the stock price down to just being more affordable for the common man. So I'm just going to
go back up and we'll get all of those gains. So.
Dude, all the gains, my friend.
Well, I'm sorry to digress this on Disney. I just found it fascinating and offline, like off air, we haven't spoke about it. And so I figured I'd, just kind of drop that on you out of nowhere and get your opinion on it on the show.
Well, Bob, I love what you do there because, we do a live show here at the Stiff Truth. And I like when you throw me a curveball here just to keep me on my toes.
Well, let's just move on. Let's just move on to the reason that we've been excited to do this show. And it ain't because of 70, 80-year-old politicians.
Oh,
it's because we wanted to talk about the Batman. like Scott
Here we
mentioned
go.
earlier, we finally got a chance to watch the Batman. Thank you, HBO, for the format.
Mhm.
I hope that a little bit of my $15 a month goes towards the fine crew and cast of the Batman.
I think they're doing okay, man.
But I just I'm busy with school and family and work and everything, and it's really hard to get to the theater to see all the shit that I'd like to see. So anyway, so I was really stoked that it came on HBO Max, and I like turned all the lights off, fucking turned the sound system up, fucking got in there on the couch, right? Just like loving this 3-hour adventure. And half hour in, I fell asleep.
Oh man, Bob.
Well, it was
Bob.
late, dude. It was at least 9:30.
You're really not giving the Stiffies a good first impression of what you thought of the Batman, because you're like, yeah, dude, it was great. Half hour in, I was fucking sawing logs and blowing bubbles.
So what happened was I didn't realize it was a 3-hour flick. So I put it on at 9 thinking, oh yeah, I'll knock this out by 11. We're good. But once it was 3 hours, just like, fuck, I'm never going to finish this tonight.
Mhm.
And then I just kind of, I made the decision, like, you know what? I'm gonna split this up over a couple of days, and then so the next day I put it on again earlier in the day, knowing that it was longer, and could get into it more mentally prepared for the day, not just kind of catching it at 9 o'clock at night after a work day. So
See, and Bob, like, this is not like a foreign thing to Bob. He actually uses the same tactic for how he tackles his gay porn. So he splits it up over a few days. He knows it's going to be a marathon. So Bob, just like, I love how you did that. You gleamed from past experience. And I joke. But yeah, no, you got into it then. I didn't know it was almost a 3-hour movie either. And we'll talk about that. I'll give you my first piece of feedback here. They could have shaved not much, but I was talking to Jamie about this. We came to an agreement that they probably could have shaved it down to about 2.5 hours. But I don't think you can shave off much more than that and still have the same movie. But there was there's like the chase scene and everything. And there was a couple things that maybe were just a little bit extended that you could shave off a few minutes here and there. But no matter what, with the content they packed in there, it's still got to be about $2.50, of time is kind of what I'm thinking.
well, excuse me. So getting into the movie, just itself, just the feel of the movie. First off, I think that Robert Pattinson was fucking fantastic. We talked about it last year about Robert Pattinson being the Batman. It might have even been the year before last at this point. We've been doing this show for so long at this point. But I remember saying, I think he's going to do a great job. And I do think he did a great job. Now, some of that was the director and the style and how they portrayed the dichotomy of Bruce Wayne and Batman, right? And there was no fucking this is Batman. There was none of that weird shit going on. And as a fan of growing up as a kid, I was into the cartoon, right? Batman the animated series. Fucking love
In the
that
90s.
shit.
Yes, great stuff.
Everything
Yes.
was super dark, right? They like never had an episode that was during the day.
The cartoon was drawn on black paper. I think that was the only cartoon that was the case, because everything was so dark. They're like, that's what we're doing here. Everything was black background. I agree. I will tell you this though, just about Pattinson. Watching the movie, I think they did a great job, and this is just a general feedback altogether. They did a great job making Batman more human as a superhero. And what I mean by that is they allowed him more than just once or twice to actually get his ass handed to him here and there. He wasn't just like beating the shit out of 4 or 5 guys with not a scratch on him. He was getting hit. He was getting knocked down. He was getting thrown. He was getting launched a little bit.
Choked out, dragged by his cape.
Yeah, like a person would do that legitimately has no superpowers, but's got some cool gadgets. And the other thing, which I'm glad they did that, is there was a couple of scenes with Pattinson shirtless. And that was the one thing where I still stand by it here. I don't want to be too much of a traditionalist, but it's like, I know he was reluctant to beef up a little bit, dude, but you're still don't have the build of somebody that's going to kick a lot of ass. You know what I mean? That was the only thing where I think on him, it was totally on him that he could have put in a little bit more effort, like the previous guy, the previous couple people that played him. I think he could have maybe added another like we'll just say 15 pounds of muscle, which on his frame would have made a big difference. But he was still extremely thin. Cut, don't get me wrong, very, very athletic looking. But he almost had like the build of a first-year basketball player versus a superhero. And that was the only thing where when I was watching it, I was talking to Jamie. I was like, yeah, dude, he's still just a little too thin, man, to be taken seriously as like a hardcore ass kicker that's going to handle 5-6 people, even if he does get his ass kicked a little bit. So there is that tiny. And again, I'm splitting hairs here. You know what I mean? I'm being critical. That's what we're doing.
Well, and just kind of knowing Robert Pattinson's frame and seeing him since he was a kid, kind of mature on camera, right? I think he did a great job of putting on weight for the film.
Yeah.
I did notice that too. I was like, oh look, he's definitely not Chris Hemsworth, right? But
yeah, right.
But at the same time, Bruce Wayne's supposed to be like a pretty young Bruce Wayne at this point. Yeah. So
maybe he's got some years to put some stuff on.
Maybe they keep him. He puts on another 10 pounds for the next show. There's a lot of things that I'm wondering about the next show. And I haven't heard that there was any sort of long-term multi-film deal for this Batman series, or if it's a series at all. I haven't heard anything like that. So I'm going off of, I'm anticipating it because to date, every Batman has had a sequel or two.
Yeah. And that's a great point. And you had corrected me, and be it as it may, what my piece of feedback about him being too thin, if again, like, I'll just go ahead and talk about it. I was also a little discouraged with the amount of time and just dedication and just character development that they gave Catwoman. Right. And that was my feedback to you the other day, but you brought up a really good point. If this is a genesis of more to come, if this is an origin story more of, say, a part of Batman and definitely Catwoman, then all of a sudden my feedback doesn't make any sense. I'm like, okay, and that, because just so everybody knows, I was talking to Bob the other day and I was like, you know what? I was a little bit just let down with the amount that Catwoman was used in her story. It seemed very premature. I mean, her mask was like a half of a ski mask. She really just seemed kind of like she was angry at one thing, one piece of vengeance. And other than that, she was just like a burglar. Really didn't have a lot. Bob had kind of put me in my place, so to speak, and said, well, yeah, but maybe this is just kind of her origin story here. She hasn't really even transitioned to being bad yet. She was still kind of on Batman's side until like the end of the movie. Spoiler alert, we're going to say some things here. If you haven't seen the movie, go out there and fucking see it. It's on HBO Max, so there's no fucking excuse. But that scene near the end where they like drive apart from each other, on motorcycles in separate ways, this could be the start of her becoming very bad, which again, I think the movie teed up. There was more than a few things, right? Especially at the end with Riddler talking to what seems to be the Joker.
Oh, maybe it totally was the Joker.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and say that. Maybe it's not, but it seems to be the Joker in the next cell of him at the asylum, where this is definitely teed up for more than one sequel. If you have to ask me, at least one. So I would be, with how well the movie did, I would be really, really surprised if they don't go for it. But
and is doing it's still in theaters.
Yeah, it's still in theaters. It's still made, but it's already made the money back, is what I'm trying to say here. I know what they've spent on the movie, which already was a pretty penny. They've already made it back. They use some actors that aren't super, super well known, so they might have saved some money. And I'm not talking about Pattinson or Colin Farrell as the Penguin, but outside of that, even we talked about it, John Turturro as Carmine. That was beautiful, dude. That was beautiful, because honestly, I know he's more of a comedic actor historically, but he's got some dramatic chops. And when I heard his voice before they even showed his face, I was like, I think that's John Turturro, dude. And like, boom, it was. I was like, what a smart fucking casting job there. Now, granted, he gets killed in the movie, but it was great to see somebody with his acting chops play that role, because it's a very, very, very pivotal role for Batman's story, and Batman's character. So kudos there. But yeah, I really think if this is teed up to have sequels, it set the stage beautifully. If it's a one and done, I've got some issues with it. And I think I mentioned those already.
This is like the 10th or 11th Batman movie installment in the
There's
franchise,
been a lot. There's been a lot.
Yeah. And I do got to say that if you haven't seen this movie, we finally find out who had Bruce Wayne's parents killed. So this is an answer that has never been given to this point. So I thought that letting us in, and I'm not even going to give that away. It's just too big of a plot line. So
for you.
if you haven't seen it, just go out there and watch it. It's really fucking good. I do love, like, kind of circling back though. The Arkham Asylum and the Batman video games of the last decade plus are more detective based. You're trying to figure stuff out. Yeah, there's ass kicking and all that too, but it's more detective based. And this was like more detective. It was dubbed, the Batman, the world's greatest detective, right? And us following him around and watching his detective skills and his intuition was a very Sherlock Holmesian type of feel for this Batman. And you could tell how bright he is and what an intellectual he is. And so I thought that was really cool, because that was the fun part about the cartoon, was watching him figure all this shit out, and it would point shit out. And as a kid, you're like, oh, wow, I didn't even think about that. That's a great clue. And yes, that would lead you to think about that. And so I thought that was really cool, because in the last one, the Christian Bale series, I guess the one before last, the Christian Bale series is already fucking 14 years ago.
The Christopher Nolan trilogy. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. So in that one, it was very much action. It was very much, typical superhero action packed kind of Michael Bay type of film, right?
Oh no, not Michael Bay. I mean,
well, it was a bunch of action sequences and explosions, right?
Yeah.
But this one, much more gritty when it came down to that. Like that scene in the subway when he's fighting those guys and he's getting his ass kicked and he's getting the better of them, pretty steadily, but he's also taking that beating, and you can tell he's going to have a cracked rib or two for the next week to deal with. But it was very much more realistic and more personal, I think, to kind of follow Batman around. Just the whole feel of this movie felt like it was you and the Batman on his missions, instead of just dropping into the Batman when he's about to kick some ass and blow some shit up.
True. I mean, even down to how the Batmobile was constructed was much more realistic. For instance, after watching the movie with Elizabeth last night, we're like, hey, do you want to see a Batman that's way more lighthearted? You want to see a Riddler that's real fun? Let's watch Batman Forever. And that was fun. We watched Batman Forever last night from 95 with Jim Carrey as the Batman. But literally, that is a Joel Schumacher movie. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's over the top ridiculousness. It's fun. You know what I mean? But it's a far cry from the realism that they went for in the Batman. And I'll even say this, the Christopher Nolan movies still learned a lesson from those last couple of movies, that followed up the Tim Burton movies, which is Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. Horrible fucking installments in the grand scheme of things for a true like comic book Batman fan. And they got better at just making it more real with this movie. I agree with you 100%. The other thing that was really good, I just mentioned it too, the character and just the portrayal of the Riddler was much better, much more creepy, much more disturbing, just like way more fucked up. You know what I mean? As a person versus like some clown like that Jim Carrey portrayed. And honestly, Jim Carrey is a great actor. We talked about this a couple of shows ago. He's got some great acting chops dramatically. His portrayal of Riddler, though, was in 95. That's when he was balls deep in like Ace Ventura and the Mask kind of, mentality.
I think the Mask came out that year.
Yeah, same year, 95. You know what I mean? So he was literally using some of his persona and some of his jokes that he used there. But again, great job, Riddler. The guy that played Commissioner Gordon, Jeffrey Wright, I just looked him up. Love that actor. He's also in what is that HBO series where he's shit, I can't remember. Do you god damn it.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
It's not Euphoria.
No. Hold on.
The
Jeffrey
one
Wright.
post-apocalyptic movie, right?
Well, it's it's a show, and it's got the chick that got like got sexually assaulted by Marilyn Manson. That's like the main actress or what have you. What was he in, dude? Hold on.
I feel like we need Jeopardy music at this point of the show.
Doom, boom, doom. Well, we'll see it. Hold on. Television. Here we go. Westworld. Jesus Christ.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He was one of the main characters in Westworld. But I'll tell you what, he did a great job. But more importantly, the way the director and the way the story kind of gave those two characters, they were like partners. You know what I mean? They were the strongest partners I've seen in everything. And Commissioner Gordon's always obviously had a soft spot for Batman, but in this one, they were like teammates. You know what I mean? Like he was like the only person on the police force that was like getting out there and putting his neck out there. I think they just did a great job there. And I love Jeffrey Wright as an actor. I will say this because I thought it was kind of funny. About 45 minutes into the movie, I was like, there's a lot of like intense whispering in this movie. You know what I mean? Like him, the Batman, and him like are like, yeah, we're gonna do this. Yeah, we're gonna, yeah. And it's like the back and forth. I was like, God damn, these guys are intensely not wanting to let anybody around them know what they're saying, but they gotta say it. Good shit though. Very
How
good
about
shit.
how about the you could have pulled that punch? I did.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah, and just kind of something we spoke about, off air was I really like how they changed Bruce Wayne and they made him more of a personality that fits with the weirdo type of dude that it would take to be someone like the Batman, right? Bruce Wayne isn't a playboy in this one.
Yeah, a
Right,
socialite kind of playboy, like extroverted, just super comfortable with himself. No, he's a crazy person, just like the Riddler. You know what I mean?
Obviously still a billionaire, but pretty
Yeah.
fucked up and dark,
Yeah.
right? And it's like ever since that his parents died, like
Mhm.
he just kind of never recovered, right? And
Yeah.
and which makes sense because that's the driving force of why he became the Batman. To
Mhm.
begin with, right? Is that like I'm gonna fix crime? I'm gonna fucking chase all the shit out of the city. It's not gonna happen to any other kids, and I think that's why when the mayor got killed and that his son was there, kind of watching that investigation,
him.
everything
Oh,
that
yeah.
hit him really hard, right?
Yeah.
Because that he just has never recovered. It's an open wound for him still, and just his personality and how dark he is, and how secluded he is, and how much of a loner he is, and how much of a fucking psycho he's become. For lack of a better term, it made sense, and I really thought it fit, and I really appreciated how they tried to make the characters realistic.
You know what? Something you just said just gave me another idea that I didn't even put together before, but the whole reason I'm thinking now that the Riddler was never able to kind of decipher that Bruce Wayne is the Batman is he's blinded by the Batman, his persona being so much like him. Because again, like you just said, it takes somebody that's some deep-seated orphan kind of problems, that are rooted in just being an orphaned, you know what I mean? Having, all this stuff and the upbringing that regardless of the having money thing or whatever, he saw them, he's like the Riddler saw these two guys as equals, like how they were. And it literally doesn't even like lend him to thinking that he could possibly be this billionaire socialite kind of person, right? Or whatever. And I thought that was pretty clever. Now that I think about it too, is like he thinks they're partners. Remember, like the Riddler is like,
Right.
yeah, it's you and me, bro. Like we're the same.
We're
And,
gonna
like,
fix this.
yeah, and like Batman's like, no, we're nothing alike. What are you fucking talking about? But
And it
they
blew
are.
his mind. Like he'd
Yeah.
never thought about that. You
Yeah.
could tell. It was
But-
really good acting. It was a really good scene.
But just and again, the Riddler hooked onto the Batman because it takes somebody that has that kind of just broken upbringing, just demolished, separated from his family or whatever, and kind of just isolated and then left to his own devices, so to speak, on revenge and other things. So it's interesting that they went that way, and they also led to just rolling out the character of Bruce Wayne and Batman that way, because it was much more realistic. You can't have this sociopathic, but you can't have this sociopathic playboy socialite kind of just badass guy that just like does his 007 shit and becomes Batman at night and just like and have that be like copacetic. It's interesting. I liked it. I think it was good.
Well, I do have to say, the scene stealer of this movie is Colin Farrell. So, in case anyone doesn't know, I'm not even going to tell you if you haven't found out or whatever. Just try to figure out who Colin Farrell plays in the movie. it's insane. He went Daniel Day-Lewis on this movie, and it's fucking amazing.
Well, he does a great job. And you know what else is really great about this movie? And now that you've kind of buried the hatchet, so to speak, on who he is, it could be an origin story, as you saw in the movie, on his entire character.
I think it has to be.
I know that's what's great too, is like literally, if we're looking at this as what could be, I'm not going to say a trilogy, but at least a sequel coming, we're looking at having 2, 3, including the Batman, 2 very pivotal antagonists that are being blossomed right in front of us. And what we've seen before has been way more into the future of their characters. You know what I mean? Almost at the end, right? Of their characters, in the sense of what they're going to be able to bring to the series in general. So it'll be interesting to see if that's the case, because I was thinking that near the end. I was like, oh man, I was like, if this is going to be like the birth of these characters, including Catwoman and Batman, this is like an entire, excuse me for sounding redundant, but an entire rebirth of the entire story for generations to come, which is always exciting. I like that.
Yes, please find a way to conceptualize and bring realism and bring Poison Ivy into the mix. And if that's a realistic character, it could be so epic.
Bob, who plays Poison Ivy? Come on, give it to me.
Oh man.
I know Uma did a pretty good job.
No. No, it's got to be someone a little bit more young and fucked up. I don't know, like it's tough to find someone who has that kind of dark chops. I'm thinking someone like around the age and kind of the look of like an Amanda Seyfried, but
okay,
I don't know if she has the darkness chops to really bring that character to life.
I'm thinking Emma Stone.
Emma Stone, that's a good one.
Yes, I'm thinking Emma Stone, but I mean, I don't want to phone her agent yet, but I'm kind of thinking that would be a nice little setup for her. But yeah, I mean, we'll see. Only good things here to come, because I do think I have to imagine, unless people are just blind to making money, that they're going to follow up with this bad boy.
Poison Ivy was so big in the franchise that it's a shame that we've only seen her portrayed in like a pretty bad movie, right? So
a very bad movie. Come on, it was bad. It was horrible.
To see that come in with the same sort of philosophy and style as they did the modern Bruce Wayne and Batman, and to see someone kind of bring in Poison Ivy again with that sort of realism, I think would be pretty awesome to conceptualize that as far as the story goes. But I just want to see some more classic, DC Batman characters come in. Don't cross it up and bring in anyone from the Suicide Squad ever.
No, I don't think that's necessary. Leave Jared Leto at home, by the way. You know what I mean? We don't need that. But we were talking about that too. If they could, and I think they can, I think it'd be beautifully smart for both actors. If they can bring in Joaquin Phoenix to play the Joker in the follow-up movie and keep Pattinson as Batman, I think we got some gold there. I think we could potentially, how they roll it out, we could potentially be looking at some Oscar nominee nods.
Same thing.
You know what I mean?
I think that would be an Oscar nominated flick up and down.
Yeah, because again, what's nice about Joaquin Phoenix, not a huge build on that guy either. So, I mean, those two guys combating together and being adversaries actually would be perfectly believable, even if they didn't beef up anymore. And they still have plenty of time to do that if they want to. So there's that. The last thing I'll say here just about the movie, because I just had to point this out. Me and you talked about it as well, especially from our generation. There's nothing better than what they did soundtrack wise than the opening and the closing of that movie with Something in the Way by Nirvana. I mean, just beautiful, perfect fit. And the nostalgia there with somebody like myself and you drips. It's fantastic, dude. It blew away every other Batman movie when it comes to the soundtrack, just because of that element that they brought in there. Because I think it was perfect.
Timeline wise too, just in as far as the 90s go, that song came out right after the original fucking Batman movie came out, like the next year. So
yeah,
like I think it really brought me back too, just in general, to just being a teenager again. Yeah, I agree. Even my son pointed out, it was just like, oh, I loved the Nirvana in it. And I was like, yeah, to open it. And he's like, and to close it. I was like, yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, my kid's pretty cool. Yeah. But I agree. I don't know, man. I was really happy with the way they did that movie. And I would really like to take it more into the way that they did the animated series and the Batman video games, and get away from the beat 'em up explosions. And get more
pow,
into,
bam, bing.
I want more plot, more story, more acting chops, more Oscar knobs. Like bring that into the Batman, because there's room there for it.
Did you say Oscar knobs? I'd like an Oscar knob too. You know what I'm saying? No,
Like a knob that's nominated for an Oscar. Like, woo!
I was like, dude, this chick, that was an Oscar worthy knob.
Chick.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay. We're on air. I get it.
You're all wink, wink. You're all, yes, Scott. Chick. Oh my god. No, you're absolutely right, dude. I think they're going that way. I think, and I honestly want to give Christopher Nolan the nod to in saying that he kind of paved the way for this to happen. I think those movies, even though they were shoot them up, blow them up, beat them up kind of stuff, they were still way more serious. All of a sudden, with those movies, it was not just a little kid friendly movie like the first ones were. You know what I mean? Like they and don't get me wrong either. Tim Burton did a great job in the first two movies. They weren't exactly kid friendly, but I went and saw Batman in 1989 when it came out in the theaters. You know what I mean? It was very, very, just very tame, right? Versus what the story should maybe be for a hardcore comic book fan at the same time and is like teens or something like that. So I think that Christopher Nolan's movies really kind of opened the door for the Joker movie in general. Like, hey, we should take this a much darker, serious route because that's what the story actually is. And now this movie following up the Joker in the sense of like, and here's Batman's story because they're almost cut from the same cloth. You know what I mean?
And we did a review on the Joker, right? And I would have to say that I would also say that the Joker movie, Joaquin Phoenix, the director, everything about it, how realistic it was, how we dug into mental health leading into this psychosis, right? I think that opened the door for this movie being more real and believable. And I think that that really kind of changed things. And I agree 100%. The Christopher Bale movies was the first time that Batman was fucked up, like dark, like willing to kill people. Like before, it was always like, oh, I'll never kill anyone. I just knock them out, or I hang them from a wire and leave them.
Yeah, hit him on the back of the head. You know,
But from the Christopher Nolan series and to this series, no, people will die. Even though he made a really good effort at the end there to not kill anyone. A couple of those dudes didn't make it.
This is true.
That out there.
This is very true.
But yeah, I don't know. I just love the realism. I love the way that it's headed. I appreciate taking Batman as a character and as a franchise as a serious topic and not as an action movie. Just taking it seriously.
I think it can be both. I think it can be both in a big way. You know what I mean? Because don't get me wrong, anybody who hasn't seen the film, there's still some action in there. There's some great fight sequences. They're not like nearly John Woo type choreographed bullshit scenes. You know what I mean? They're more real, like we were talking about earlier. Hey man, if you're going to take on 4 dudes and you're the size of Robert Pattinson, you're going to get hit in the head a few times, maybe get tossed around the room. But if you got some really cool little gadgets on you, you know how to fight. Yeah. And not to mention, yes, his bulletproof armor really saves the day in this movie, by the way.
Over and over.
Yeah. Without that, dude, the movie is over at minute 3 or something like that. But yeah, no, seriously, again, his innovation with his armor and his weaponry, that's what Batman's all about in the comic books. You know what I mean? He's not, again, a superhero in the sense of the true superhero like Superman or the X-Men or something like that. I mean, he's got to scrape and claw his way to getting places and really put in some gumption, so to speak. And he does just that. But on the way, you're going to get a few knocks. And I think they did a great job there too. Well, I'll tell you what, it was a good show. Let me ask you this, just because I have to do it. We're critiquing it. We're giving a review here. What do you think could have been better? I laid a couple of things right out of the gate that I could have changed a little bit, but I want to hear from Bob because I haven't heard much.
I think they could have gone into a little bit more of the Catwoman, kind of transitioning from her burglar. Why is she such a good burglar? I mean, why is that happening? Right. I think they could have gone into a little bit more of Batman kind of his tech. Like they just kind of show him in the Batcave. They don't really show like
who's making it, right? Is it Alfred?
They don't show any much about his Batcave. They don't really show any of like kind of his origin. We just kind of jump in and we kind of catch it from this point forward. And then maybe that's another movie. Maybe there's another plan. I don't know, but I think there was a lot of a lot of explaining that didn't happen. And obviously, as fans, we know kind of the story about it, but it'd be nice from this perspective to see kind of what they had in mind for the story, or their spin on it, or their representation of it. But I think that you're right. It probably could have been shortened, and the focus could have probably been split up a little bit more. And I don't know if that was by design to really dig us into Robert Pattinson and his Batman. But I do got to say that I do think on the flip side that Robert Pattinson did a great job. I never would have thought that he had such a great chin in the suit.
Jamie said the same thing. It was funny, and we're almost about out of time here, so we'll wrap this up. But she was like, "Do they literally pick these actors by their jawline?" And I was like, "I think they do." Like,
hold on, let's audition you. You just.
He's like, "Nah, dude, you don't even have a chin. You're not gonna work, guy." But I think it's funny because everybody that's put on the cape, I think that's like part of like George Clooney, Val Kilmer, everybody else that's like done it in between, like, the other three guys that like had a little bit more of a run or whatever. They all look great in the suit, in the sense from like the face profile and everything. So it is interesting because I noticed that too. Because one thing that Patton said, if we're going to get nitpicky, he's got a very small nose, and here am I with a really big nose or whatever. But I think it's funny that they kind of built that up a little bit, like in the mask or what have you, gave a little bit more rubber right there just to make it look a little bit more full. But the jawline looks immaculate. It's great. They did a great job there. Well, excuse me, Pattinson's parents, they did a great job there. You got a great jawline, kid. Good for you.
That's right. Overall, though, I mean, I think as far as Batmans go, this is a good one. This one's definitely in my top 5 as far as Batman movies go. So top half. It's not going to be my best Batman, but it's a good one. And I'm looking forward to watching it again and kind of trying to catch stuff that I might have missed, and looking for more details. Whenever I have 3 hours to spend.
Exactly. Well, Bob, you can't dangle that out there for me on the stiffies and not give a little clarity on that. Where does this rank? Buddy? Exactly. Where does it rank?
That's tough. Man.
Do you need more time?
I probably would need more time, but just off the top of my head, I would say it's probably around that 3 area.
I would say the same thing. I would say overall, and again, guys, it's not saying that this movie is less great in the sense of its capability as a Batman, just a Batman showing here. But yeah, I'd put it in the top 3 in the sense where I'm still probably going to put a 1989.
That's Michael Keaton's got the first one. I think 2008's Christopher Nolan's probably second for me still.
Yep.
And then this one's probably right there.
Yeah, I think it's right, but they're almost hand in hand. They're almost parallel to each other in the sense. I think they've done a great job with this. So, wrapping this up, summarizing what we have talked about today, Bernie, just go get some soup and sit down in your lazy boy. Trump, do the same thing with Biden. You guys are done. Let's let the younger generations handle that. And with the Batman, I think me and Bob are going to give it 2 stiff drinks up. Yeah.
You heard it here. Madison Cawthorn 2024.
There it is, folks.
He's going to wheel his way to the presidency.
Well, I'll tell you what, man, I think we are about out of time, but it has been a fun one, guys. Thanks again for listening us. Continue to support us on Patreon. Check us out on our YouTube channel. Obviously, like and subscribe to, rate us on all the podcasts out there. Continue to listen, continue to love us because we love you. And until next time, guys, we'll see you soon.
Remember, don't be dicks to people. See ya.